France's involvement within the European Union. Here we will provide some background information of France. Currently, they have a population of 65,856,609 people. France also makes up 13% of the European Union's population overall, and they hold 74 seats in the European Parliament. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, the European Parliament has to do with the legislative function of the European Union. Overall, there are 751 seats, so France does not hold a huge amount, but a decent amount. Lastly, the currency in France is the euro, like many European countries. The European Union originated from two organizations. The first was the European Coal and Steel Community, the ECSC, which was founded by the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman in May of 1950. The second was the European Economic Community, which was founded by 6 countries: France, Luxembourg, West Germany, Belgium, Italy, and the Netherlands. In May of 1993, the EU was named as it is currently with the signing of the Maastricht Treaty. The Council of the EU is where representatives meet to adopt laws and policies for the EU. To be fair, the Council President rotates every 6 months and is chosen from a different country each time. These 6-month intervals are from January to June and from July to December. And the President resides over all meetings. The meeting agendas are determined by ministers of the President's home country. France has had a President of the Council 12 times since the EU began, including the very first President of the Council. The EU budget is funded by EU member countries. Although the budget is split fairly, countries with bigger economies pay into the budget more than others. The purpose of the EU budget is to help the EU become competitive as a whole instead of as individual countries. The budget is broken down into 6 main areas: smart and inclusive growth, special instruments, administration, global Europe, security and citizenship, and sustainable growth and natural resources. In 2014, France paid 19.574 billion euros into the European budget and saw 13.479 billion of those euros put back into their country through EU spending. The EU spent those 13.479 billion euros over 5 different categories. France had the largest portion of their spending go towards agriculture with 63.3%. This was the largest percent spending in any country toward agriculture. France had one of the lowest percentages of all the countries of spending toward regional policy with 19.9%. The average amount of a country's spending toward regional policy in 2014 was 42% of their total spending. France had 13.3% of their spending go toward research and development, 1% toward citizenship, freedom, security, and justice, and 2.5% towards administration. Here, we have a list of all 28 members involved with the European Union. The dates listed to the right of each place signifies when they actually became a member. As mentioned, France, in particular, became an official member as of 1958 and is still a current and active member. The main countries that seem to work closest with France seem to be Italy, Germany, and Greece. We will go into recent events between France and other countries within the EU. France has one of the 5 largest economies of the world. Shown here is a list of the top 10 companies for 2015 ranked by revenue and market capitalization. A couple more familiar companies on the list are the L'Oreal Group at number 7, which is a very popular company in the beauty and cosmetics industry, and BNP Paribas at number 3, which is a banking and financial services provider that has its headquarters in Paris. One major aspect of the economy in France is their export business. Much of France's exports include a number of valuable goods, including machinery and transportation equipment, aircrafts, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, plastics, iron and steel, and some cars and vehicles. France is also the world's largest exporter in both services and farm products. A major part of this foreign trade is carried out with partners in the EU, including Germany, the UK, Spain, and Italy. Exports to the EU increased slightly in the last few years due to the increasing amounts of exports to Germany and Italy. Outside of the European Union, exports to the Middle East, the US, Switzerland, and Turkey fell a bit, but sales to Asia and Africa have actually increased. Next, there is a migrant issue that started to become an actual crisis in 2015 that EU members France, Germany, and Italy wanted to approach. Migrants who escaped countries like Syria and Iraq started to pour into European Union, and these three countries stood by each other to try and review the rules and regulations of migrant distribution rules. Together, they conducted a meeting with the EU foreign minister to go over solutions and such. This shows how France is related to Italy and Germany in a way that they were experiencing the same issues with the migrant crisis. France's involvement with other countries in this case was for the overall better of the European Union. France and Greece seem to have a great relationship with one another, both back then and nowadays. France was actually the country to step up and negotiate for Greece to be in the European community. Greece suffers a great deal with their economy, though. France tries to help them out as much as they can by continuing to trade with them, and also France was their main investor from 2009 to 2013 when it came to FDI for Greece. Immigration security is a major concern in Greece and France, has stepped in annually to provide land and resources to the EU border agency called Frontex. Overall, these two have had a bond and work well together. In this next section, we will discuss how all members of the EU stepped up to help France after the terrorist attacks that recently occurred. This attack was on November 13, 2015 in Paris, and it was devastating. Over 130 people were announced dead, and hundreds were wounded. The Council of the European Union came forward and spoke on behalf of all EU members and stated that they were willing to support in any way possible after France requested assistance under Article 42.7 of the EU treaties, which reads, "If a member state is the victim of armed aggression on its territory, the other member states shall have towards it an obligation of aid and assistance by all the means in their power, in accordance with Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. This shall not prejudice the specific character of the security and defense policy of certain member states." This goes to show how important France is to the European Union and that their membership truly matters and the assistance is there when it is needed, especially in tragedies like this. Although members may have issues with one another during their times in the EU, when there is a crisis, they provide a shoulder to lean on. Now let's look at France's position in the EU. The government of France constantly explains their positions in the EU to the European commissioners and members of the European Parliament. All of France's government ministries have specific directorates and departments for European affairs. France's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Marc Ayrault, and Minister of European Affairs is Harlem Désir. Together, they set all France's position on European matters. They explain and promote French positions on all European questions, and they maintain a close partnership with Germany and the European Union. The permanent representation of France to the EU acts as the communication channel to Brussels. They help implement all European Union policies and maintain relations with all stakeholders involved in the European decision-making process. In this, they defend France's positions and interests within the EU. Lastly, the committee consists of 24 chosen local and elected French representatives. They voice their opinions on all European projects affecting local and regional authorities, such as transport networks, planning, public health, and many more. They work closely in Brussels with France's permanent representatives. Thank you.